let's just allow the photo up quickly and then we'll start.
We got it. Yeah, no, it's not
Cute photo.
yet, but we got it. We're on it. Then we're fine.
Fantastic. Now you have to tag all of us, Mark, on that picture because we all had to wait for you. For those who are joining us online, a welcome back. Sorry, we just had to take a quick break because we need to swap microphones. You are now watching the panel for Women in Fame. We've seen a handful of other women in fame in previous panels, but I'm quite excited about this. I've had the privilege of hanging out with some of these ladies online, some physically in preparation for today's conversation. Again, if you haven't met me, my name is Tamin Karimeng. I'm known as the Message Architect, and I'm going to be the moderator and host for this conversation, so do enjoy. Let's jump right into it. And I'm going to go on the bandwagon that Mark went on earlier on to say, oh, I'm not going to read all your bios because you all have like 3 pages of bio each. Tepo, start for us.
Hi, Tepo Moche, based in Cape Town. I'm a freelance writer and director, working mainly in animation, but also in live action, and also part of a fantastic company called Play Nice Pictures, where we do development work and writing in all spheres. Yeah.
Fantastic. Right next to her, we have Lwazi, actually Dr. Lwazi, to all of you. Please introduce yourself.
It's afternoon now, right?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's lovely to be here. It's an honor to be invited. My name is Lwazi Manze, and I am executive producer at Spear Films. Thank you.
Fantastic. Let's come over to Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam DeBrain from the Sam Management Agency. We do artist management, specifically singers throughout South Africa, based in KZN, Joburg, as well as Cape Town. We also do social media management, content creation, music videos, photography, basically a one-stop shop for anyone wanting to get into the entertainment and singing world.
Fantastic. Erica, over to you.
Hi everybody, so I'm Erica Elk. I run the Craft and Design Institute. We work with creatives, mostly people running businesses, and we help them do business better. I'm also in my spare time, which I don't have a lot of, a visual artist.
Oh, fantastic. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Esther Pearl, and I am the founder of Real Stories. And Real Stories is training the next generation of female and non-binary filmmakers. And we are based in the United States, but we just partnered with the Cape Town International Animation Festival to start launching our first international workshops.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to jump right over to Lwazi immediately, right? When I read her bio, I just thought, whoa. Can you just give people a little bit of background on how you came into the film industry and what else you actually do?
Okay, sure. So yes, I am Dr. Lwazi Manze. I am a doctor by training. I worked in emergency medicine for about 12 years. While I was working as an emergency doctor, I realized that what makes people sick is systemic and continued persistent mental subjugation, particularly Black Africans. And that's what makes people sick. And I wanted to have a much bigger impact than just the revolving door syndrome that I felt like I was a part of as a doctor, particularly as a doctor working in the state sector in South Africa. And so I got bamboozled into producing. I didn't know I was producing at the time. But
Bamboozled.
usually in this country, if you're a producer, you're not a trained producer or anything. It's because you're not technically good at any of the sound or imagery stuff. You don't know anything about writing, scripts, and all of that. So you just get thrown into the producer position. And that's what happened to me in the first film. But then I liked it, and I thought, you know, I like this, and I like it because it gives me an opportunity to harness all of these voices that haven't been heard and try and find a space for them to actually be heard and find some expression for people who have been constantly disenfranchised. And that's how I transitioned into the film industry. I did it very slowly. I did it over the course of a couple of years. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about, you know, the organizations and all of that helped me on the pathway There's a lady here, Monica Rovik, who was there right at the beginning with me all the way. And slowly but surely I transitioned into the industry and I became a pretty competent producer. And yeah, I've gotten into big television production now as well. And I've also been playing a bit in the political arena as well. But I'm sure we'll
I
ask
love
a
the
bit
little
more
bit,
about that.
little bit in the political arena. Tafa, what are some of the challenges that you find for females in this film industry?
Ooh, some of the challenges. I mean, we might need a longer session. But, I mean, they're always balanced off with, like, also
Just
some
give me two,
beautiful things.
because I
Two,
feel like
okay,
this
I
could
was like,
go
limit.
on. Yeah.
I think for myself and my experience, one has been access in a certain way, being able to have access to certain things, also just knowing what is out there, so things that are accessible. So I came from a live action space, and I dipped into animation only, it's been about 3 years, but for most of my studying career time, it wasn't an option. Like certain things just weren't available. Just being an artist alone as a black female African is tough enough when you're not being a doctor or lawyer. So access to certain things and that kind of information. And I think another challenge is also then once you're kind of in that space, honing your voice in that space and holding it would be the other major challenge, I think, for me. Yeah.
I can't help but pick up, you have this distinct accent. Were you born and raised here and went to study in America, or
No,
where
so
does
I was born outside of the country as well, born in Zambia, grew up in Canada, studied also in other countries. I'm an exile baby, parents were part of the freedom fighting unit, yeah, so that's where the accent comes from.
So when you speak about challenges, do you find those challenges are the same everywhere that you've been?
Yeah, for the most part across the board, but I do think, and it's funny you're picking up on the accent thing, part of, even with the challenges I've had, having this accent and having grown up internationally also created a certain kind of cushioning for me that I did recognize as well, which has always been very interesting. But yeah, across the board globally, it's all still the same facet. We're all connected. It's the same problems.
We're all connected. That's so true. I completely agree. We are all connected. Sam, you're in the business of building brands, right?
I am.
So what does it take to build a brand and making sure that the female aspect of you is always front and center?
There's definitely a nurturing point that gets instilled into every single artist that I work with, because when I'm building a brand, it's essentially artists that I am taking from here and leveling them up. So a lot of the artists are so hungry for knowledge. So it's a point where you have to be sensitive to where they're at and where they're going at, and it's a growth point. So, you know, with females in particular, they almost see me as a role model, someone that they're getting advice from, you know, as a mother figure within the music industry. So there definitely is that nurturing role that I find myself investing that time into a female artist and, you know, just giving them as much advice and education and upliftment and, yeah, like I said, time investment into their career and just trying to get the best out of them at every step of the way.
So let me just get a bit of clarity. So you have a female artist and you make sure you invest in them as a female. At which point do you start making the momentum based on actually their skill set and their talent and not just on uplifting them from a gender perspective?
For me, it's based on gut, right from here. I will listen to an artist's voice, their talent, their musical abilities, and it's basically an entire package. And it really is something that comes from here, and it's something that I've told people right from the beginning, is that if I don't feel it, I can't represent it.
Wow.
Because I need to be able to believe in my product in order to push it. Because I can't stand behind something and try and make someone else believe in it if I don't. So it really is like when I listen to a song for the first time, or someone sends me a submission and says, I want to be a part of your team, there's a burning feeling that happens here. I'm like, that's it, done, signing you up.
Okay.
And it really is, and it's raw potential that I can hear from a cell phone recording versus a studio recording, is that I can pick up, it doesn't matter the quality that's being sent, it's the essence behind it. And it is, it's a gut feeling. And to this day, my gut hasn't been wrong.
Wow, I love that because I also follow my gut, so I resonate with you. That's why I think you're so cool.
Girl.
Let's move over to you, Erica. What do you think are the barriers for females in the film, arts, media, entertainment space? I know we had a bit of a conversation on this. So, do you want to let me know, just maybe let the audience members know, what do you believe the barriers are for females?
But I'm trying to remember the conversation. Is this working? So I think that so the sort of provocation that was given was funding, mentoring, and training of
Yeah.
barriers. And I think that's there's sort of like a rote response to what the barriers are for individuals and for businesses. Can you hear me if I just speak? Yes.
No.
Hello?
Thank you for that.
No, I don't think that's working either.
So no, I've lost my train. Sorry. So actually, I think the thing about in the creative industries is that we forget that they're talent-based industries. And it's not to say that not everybody is creative and not everybody is talented in some way, but actually people are talented in different ways and in specific ways. And that talent needs to be nurtured, and that nurturing needs to happen from cradle all the way through to professional practice. And actually, I think in this country, the biggest barrier for creatives, women and men alike, but obviously, especially for women, we're talking about women in this space, is the nurturing of creative talent that happens in our schooling system, in our community. And then I think that becomes another barrier when you're in the professional environment, because our creative industries aren't actually taken very seriously. So I've been doing the job that I've been doing for 20 years, and it feels like 20 years I've been fighting and pushing for our sector to be taken seriously and to be seen as not just kind of the economic contributor, but important contributors to society and to our well-being as a society. And then that's compounded, I think, when you're a woman, even more so when you're a Black African woman in this country and in the world. So I think yeah, I can stop there. But that's my sense is really that is the biggest challenge, is how we are seen as an industry and as practitioners in the industry.
I love that. So you talk about talent, and it's something I do speak quite a bit about when I do some of my talks. I always say, for me, it's a little bit more than talent to get into this industry. It's more of a purpose. And for me, purpose is the intersection of passion and talent. And I give an example of, I've had some of the greatest places to work, and planned events of all sorts of calibers, but it was a talent, wasn't a passion, so I didn't enjoy it. And similarly, you watch idols, people are passionate about music, but they're not necessarily talented at it. So when it's your purpose, you kind of get catapulted to do the greatness. Do you believe in that? Do you think it just takes talent to make it?
No, I think it's all of those things. I think what Seppo said was like, you need access, we need networks. that's really what I worked in film for 30 plus years now. I started when I was in high school. And that's why, and then I was at Pixar for 10 years, and that's why I started my organization, because there were no other women in the room. And I'm clearly a white woman, so there were no other, buddy who also looked like my family. And so, how do we give people who don't have access to networks and access to, I couldn't agree with you more, and really valuing these contributions. Still even in the States, there is still like an idolization of like doctors and lawyers, and those are great jobs, but if that's not your purpose, if your purpose is more creativity, and we still have the stereotype that of being a starving artist, which obviously being in the arts, because it is more your personal effort that's out there, can be difficult, but they're also fantastic careers.
Right.
Right now, globally, animation is exploding. I'm producing a project out of Canada. We can't find enough people to work on it because it's the only thing that's been able to happen through this pandemic. And so we need to teach young people and their communities of support that this is maybe not necessarily like a ledge that they're walking onto, but an actual bridge to a better life.
Yeah. So I'm going to stay with you, Esther. And I know you're going to say, I was at the right place at the right time. That you can't give me that answer, right?
No,
When
I
you
was
got
never
into-
at the right place at the right time. I've always been at the wrong place at the wrong time. And those are the best
So
places.
when you got into Pixar,
Yeah.
that was an opportunity for you.
Yeah.
How do females source opportunities and utilize them to the best of their ability?
I think we do the thing that sometimes I don't love to do, which is really like network and figuring out ways to we all know someone who knows someone. Even I did not come from a background of anybody in film. I grew up in a family with no access to television or even allowed to like watch media. My parents were political activists in the States. They were deeply disappointed that this was the career path
But
I
of
went
course.
down. But yet still, like and we didn't have LinkedIn at that point. Like now we can start to like do that work up front be like, oh, I do know someone, and I can at least look at where they've been on that trajectory, maybe sort of stalk them online. But it takes like really kind of getting you out of your comfort zone, which I think is difficult for creatives because it is natural for us to maybe not all of us, but to like just kind of work on our artwork and not necessarily want to put it out. I mean, that's why the folks who were speaking before us they're so amazing. They made this amazing film and they were so transparent in like what they had access to. One camera, one lens, 4 lights, they shot a feature. Like, that's incredible. Like, we want to have more of that because we need those stories. Like, we're all tired of the same thing that we're seeing all the time.
True story. Oh, right. I'm so tired. Dorothy, I'm going to come over to you. We speak of there's always jargon, like networking. And we've got a few women in the room. How many ladies do we have in the room? Just raise your hand. Oh, not a few. Come on.
Those that
we got a
identify.
lot of females in the room. Just explain practically, what is networking in your world?
No, you just show up.
Yeah.
Just show up. That was something that, so I was very fortunate to attend, so now Americans are very long, because I'm going to try and remember this. The US Department of State Fortune Most Powerful Global Mentorship Program.
You
I apologize.
And one of the first things they taught us is just show up.
Yeah.
Now, she's right. A lot of women, and I used to be one of those women, not anymore now because I've been in politics, so you have to talk. But a lot of women don't like networking, actually, you know. And there's several reasons why we don't like it. You know, it's kind of, you feel a bit vulnerable, exposed, and all of that. When you have to network with men, you know, a couple of drinks down the line, the networking lines start getting blurred and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of, sort of social barriers for networking.
That's it.
But I like to encourage women just by saying, just show up, right? Because then you don't put this pressure on yourself to network and be all like dynamic and da-da-da-da. But if you show up, and you show up with purpose, you will most certainly speak to somebody. And then that somebody will refer you to somebody. And then that somebody will refer you to somebody. And you will finally find that sweet spot or that sweet person who's actually going to give you what you need. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when you have a moment to talk, don't waste time and beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Just say what it is that you want. Right out. Everybody knows that we've come here because I want something from somebody else. So don't pretend and be all coy and all of that. And guys don't do that. A guy will be like, hey, how are you? What do you do? Hey, you're a film executive. Hey, I've got a script, man, for you, you know. Whereas girls are going to want to talk about their cats and their dog, try to, no, I'm not here for that. Especially if I'm an exec, I just want you to tell me what you want. And I'll tell you if it's a yes or a no. And then the third thing is, the way I would network, and I didn't know that I was doing this, and somebody advised this to me much later, and I was like, yes, I do that, you know. I do like to gun for powerful men, and I like to gun for powerful white men. Because they will take you places that you'll never, ever be able to get in, well, certainly as a black female, that you'll never be able to get into. And once you get into that level of network, as it were, you know, rich people, powerful people, but also not everybody who's rich and powerful is a shark. Some of them are really kind. Some of them really want to help, you know. Some of them are just waiting for somebody to tell them, this is what I want, you know, and not sort of beat around the bush. That also I found was really, really effective for me as well.
Wow, I love how candid you are. I love having candid conversations with you. Sam, let's talk about showing up. That actual word, you know. There's a fine line for women in showing up as woman and pretty, and then only being seen as woman and pretty. How do you find that balance as a brand?
It's difficult, especially with managing more of a youthful artist to an experienced artist. Because I found with some of my artists that I'm working with currently, they almost mold themselves to what society wants them to be seen as, instead of identifying themselves with actually who they are and who they want to express themselves as. They are so almost deep into what the social realm expects of them, instead of them standing out and saying, this is who I am. And that's where I come back to the nurturing point of, that's a conversation I have to have right in the beginning of, who are you? I don't want to know who you want to sound like. I want to know who you want to sound like, who you are, essentially, like right from the core. And it's difficult with the younger generation when there's the likes of social media and what's expected of them. And so it's literally trying to just tear that all apart and going right down to the essence of their talent and as well as their passion, and expressing themselves through their music or whatever trade it is that they want to go in. And, you know, I'm very for expressing yourself with the way you dress, you know, and there is that level of respect as well that I believe that a woman should have for themselves within the industry. There's a time and place as well for the way you dress, for how you present yourself, you know, conversations that you have. And, you know, if you want to be a professional in this industry, you have to treat yourself as a professional first. And that has to be applied in every single sector of the industry that you walk into, whether it's a conference like this or a networking event like we had last night. And it's, like you say, you have to show up. And, you know, something else that I tell a lot of these aspiring artists, or even artists that are currently in the industry, is you got to fake it till you make it. Everyone arriving at an event, they've got their own insecurities. You know, everyone there is thinking the same thing. It's like, I'm nervous, like, I don't know anyone here. And everyone is feeling that. So you guys are actually all on the same playing field. So you arrive there thinking, actually, I'm going to be confident. No one here knows I've got absolutely no confidence, but I'm going to be confident, and I'm going to just ride this train. And, you know, that's basically, you know, showing up your best self. No one knows you other than what you are putting forward. So if you can show up, faking that confidence, because somehow putting it out there feeds it straight back into you. And, you know, all of a sudden, you're riding this train of fake confidence. Next thing, you're speaking to this person, this person, this person, this person, and there's all this energy coming straight back into you. So it is showing up, showing face, and just literally putting your best foot forward in the most professional way, dressing in a certain way, applicable to a certain event, or to a music video, or to a live performance, and, you know, treating yourself with respect as well.
Yeah, my mentor, Oprah Winfrey, she says everybody's always trying to be the best version of themselves, and that's what everybody in the room is actually trying to do. What does showing up and being yourself mean to you, Tam?
For me, showing up, I think just echoing some of what Sam's saying about like being in certain spaces and presenting yourself in a certain way, but at the same time also, I attempt to kind of push that a little bit. So you have a certain perception of me, like you're saying, you know, you arrive, you're dressed the right way, I'm going to give you the pretty face because that's what you expect. But also, you know, I'm sitting in an executive room, but I sometimes make an effort to like, I make sure my tattoos show in a certain way as well, where I'm like, okay, I'm still going to be demure, but I have a neck tattoo. This is what I look like. It's also just like pushing that space of like, now that I've made it in the room, now I've got to show up in a way that is authentic to myself as well, while still showing respect for the people that I'm with, but in turn I want the respect back, and I look like this. So you're going to have to accept it in a certain way, because also my look does not, it's not necessarily speaking
Who
to
you
my skill or
are.
my talent as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
speaking to an aesthetic that I just enjoy.
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways I think for me showing up matters, and as well as speaking back to that authentic voice. I think when you're in certain spaces, you should be honest with people when you don't know something or you can't hold something in a certain way, because I think that forms part of a show of a certain understanding a person has and a maturity level and a conscientiousness about themselves as well, self-awareness. I don't know this thing, but I'm willing to try, attempt, explore, so showing up honestly for me really matters. So when I'm not feeling confident, I mean even now my voice is shaking a little bit. I'm nervous to be
you're
with such
good.
lovely people. No, I know. Thank you. Appreciate it. But even just being able to do that, because I want to get my point across, and if my voice is shaky, I'm just going to express why it is, and then I can carry on. Thank you for this. So yeah, authenticity and honesty, I think, and being very self-aware of yourself and being able to, that's the confidence I think you can tap into when you can't tap into something else. Confidence about yourself, and then giving that. And then it kind of cycles through, like Sam
You're going to
said.
have to be my friend after this. I can't change it.
You know Oprah, I'm with you.
So let's talk a little bit about women leadership and the impact. Can we really talk about impact in women leadership in Africa right now? Or, do we even have enough women leadership to talk about the impact in this industry?
Sure.
You're getting all the tough ones.
So, the answer is probably no. But I think that the importance thing, and I suppose it's something that I have felt all the way through, I guess, my career and the work that we do, is that it's important for people to see themselves in role models and in other people.
Yep.
So the approach, I can just talk about the approach that I've taken in my organization and the work that we do, is that it's about access to opportunity and about network, and it's about putting people into a space where they can be seen. And I think that's what leaders need to do. So that's not always about the leader and being the leader, but it's about the opportunities that you create for other people to be seen and to see themselves in others. I don't know if I'm hoping that that's making sense.
Absolutely.
It's also just a very woman thing to do, is that I've made a point and now I'm
Yes.
checking in that it makes sense.
And there's nothing wrong with checking in. It made complete sense to me, to you,
Yes.
right? To
Absolutely.
everybody.
Yeah.
So you made sense. You're okay. Esther, do you think that being a creative and in this industry is a lonely journey for females?
I think it can be, absolutely. I've definitely been in places, again, this is still unique. The fact that there were 2 panels today that were, female identified dominated is amazing. And I will say that these issues are not just affecting South Africa. This is the same stuff that we're dealing with in the States as well. So yeah, it can be very lonely. I was thinking about what you guys all said about showing up with networking, and something that I've been trying to think about with some of the folks that I'm mentoring is rethinking about that in your head as relationship capital. That as women, we often don't necessarily have as much access to financial capital, but we often have really amazing networks of people, of friends, of family, and looking at those as part of your equity platform, or portfolio, if you will. So I think it is really, especially as a leader, it can be very lonely, and so having those opportunities to do things like this and meet other people who might be dealing with some of the same struggles. That, of course, was only amplified with COVID, right? Where those opportunities became more and more fully alone. So, how do we look at that as those challenges as opportunities for growth is really the most exciting to me.
I'm gonna borrow from something that Amanda Dambuza said, and I'm gonna come to you, Lwazi. She says she doesn't believe in this whole you must lift other women as you rise. And she gives a theory to say, when you are mountain climbing, you take the least amount of things on your back so that you can make it to the top. So you cannot be carrying all this weight. You can pick people once you have summited, not as you climb. What's your take on that?
Well, it's an interesting analogy, but I don't think it works, frankly. So, as an example, okay, there's two things that happen when you have women leaders. Ne? There's something active that happens and something passive that happens. Okay. The passive thing, we call it, the fancy term for it is selection bias.
Yeah.
Okay, and all it means is that you just tend, if you have to make a team and you don't think too hard, you just tend to pick people that look like you or feel like you.
Yeah.
You know. Now, as a film executive, if I am confronted with a bunch of people, and I have to make decisions very quickly, it just happens naturally that if I'm interviewing somebody and what they're saying makes sense and I'm happy, and they're black and they're female and they sound like me, I'm just going to pick them. It's just a natural thing that happens, So that's passive. But to give an active example is that, when I started in the film industry, I was pretty much the only black female producer who wanted to be a producer, sorry. Most people don't want to be producers for very good reasons, and many times I've also asked myself if I'm crazy or what for wanting to do this. And I just said to myself, I can't be, it cannot be that I'm the only one, And there were several things that I did. First of all, when everybody at the Durban Film Festival, not everybody, women at the Durban Film Festival decided, no, they wanted to conglomerate. I was one of the first to put up my hands, and I was a founding board member of SWIFT. The second thing that I did was I started something called cineculture, because I really wanted to get into, getting people's heads into navigating IP, owning IP and commodifying IP. I was very, very concerned about that, particularly as a country which does so many pictures worth billions and billions of dollars, but we're only servicing. I hated that, and I really wanted to push that when we do these really, really big television shows, that we make sure that we own IP as well. So I was really pushing for that, and I started cineculture, and I did a lot of that in KZN, and I brought, powerful black men. I brought Danny Glover down, and I brought a very rich American down as well. And between the two of them, they helped me to actually get that program going. And then when it was my turn to do a big, multi-million-dollar picture, I was insistent that, I own some of it. And as a result, I'm the first black female to actually own a $30 million show. Co-own a $30 million show. I don't own the whole thing. We had a black female production manager who is now part of we now have a stable of producers that we call Africa Imagining. So she's now lead producer in some of our sort of bigger South African pictures. And we've brought on a whole bunch of other black female producers. And this stable of black female producers, we are taking them with us. So we've just sold the professionals to CW. We're taking them with us to CW, to the big guys, and we're saying, now we're going to develop these guys together, so that when you bring your big pictures here, number one, they have to own some of it, even if it's only a few percent, but at least they must own some of it and be able to exploit some of it. But two, you'll have the confidence that you developed these guys, to be able to manage $100 million pictures in the country. So that we actually have a real partnership going forward. So no, I disagree. Yeah.
And I'm glad you did, because I love to ask that question, because the first time I heard it, I was like, and had a very big question mark to how I felt about it. So it's okay. Some people agree with it, some people disagree. Sam, some advice to some of the females in the industry.
You've got to graft hard.
Probably double the amount of time.
100% is that no matter what it is, night and day, you've got to work hard. And whether that is being a female or male within this music industry, is that hard work does show. You can't just sit back and expect your manager or your agents to do the work for you.
Yep.
And that is something that I tell all the artists that I work with, is that if you're not working harder than what I am, I don't think that this is going to be a good team.
Yeah.
Because I need to know that the person I'm investing my time into is investing their own time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I can't push someone unless they are fully invested in their own career as well. So for me, it's hard work. Like you say, stay true to yourself. I don't want to be representing 5 of the same people.
Yeah.
I want to be representing an individual in every single aspect of their career. So stay true to who you are, be authentic, and just work hard. And probably the biggest thing would be to stay loyal. Stay loyal to the people who have been there with you from the beginning, who have gotten you up to the levels that you've wanted to go to. Because I believe that staying loyal to the team that founded your brand and has brought you up to the levels that you want to be at, they're just going to keep getting you up. Because, you know, for me, there's this, I'm results driven. So for me, there's this hunger that I want to get more results and more results and more results. And if I know someone is loyal to this process, I'm just going to continue investing even more of my time into it. So that would be my advice.
Can I add something to the stay
Yes,
loyal thing?
sure.
Yeah. In the creative, I've been in a lot of industries and I've worked in many places, but the creative industries, I don't know what it is about artists, the way they think that whatever it is that they're thinking or feeling is absolute paramount, you know. And I've seen so many relationships break up, good relationships, strong. I mean, you know, if you think about relationships like, you know, Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese, relationships like Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson. I'm sure they fought a lot, but they stayed loyal to each other, you know. Recognizing that they're actually building something together.
Absolutely.
And you don't let your own, you know, unless really it is a deal-breaking situation where your absolute morals and your moral standing is being called to question, you don't let your emotions and your superficial feelings get in the way of a really, really strong partnership. You do not build an empire going from person to person to person, from producer to producer. It doesn't work that way. So this thing of staying in the creative industries is something that I think artists and then people who are more sort of on the financial side of the artistry, and also don't fall out with somebody who's helping you with your finances as well, you know.
Exactly.
Right? You know, if somebody is advising you that, listen, you know, try doing something like this, see it from their point of view, you know. Don't be too precious about your artistry. Yes, stay true and all of that, but take advice, because that's what we all do in all of the other sectors. We listen to lawyers, we listen to doctors, we listen to financial advisors, and then we build on what they're advising us on, even if we think we have the best business idea or whatever, you know. So really, you know, that loyalty thing, you know, I think it's something that artists really just need to very much attune to, and be very, very conscious of, and be conscious that you're building something. You're not just expressing yourself, you know, you're actually a commodity. And you're part of the third biggest industry in the world, you know. So be an impactful player by really, really building upwards as well, vertically integrate as well as your horizontal integration. Be sure to really maintain that vertical integration, and it only gets done if you're loyal to the people who are actually helping you.
I find it quite interesting that the examples you give are from the States. And I'm trying to think here, I was actually sitting here and I'm trying to think, who could be an example from Africa, not even just South Africa, like those relationships, and it's difficult to figure it out. And that's quite scary, right?
Yeah.
Because we're here for Fame Africa. So I want to come to you, Tapo, and ask you this question. What advice would you give specifically to African women in the industry?
Specifically to African women in the industry. I know it's a tough one. It's still going to seem
It
a little
is
global.
tough, right?
Because at the crux of it, like I said, it all is connected at the end of the day. So I can
But it's a
speak to-
reality check for us,
I
right?
think it's one, African women actually, if I connected in some form, let's say culturally speaking in a certain way, because, you know, there's that strong base culturally as African women, you know, it takes a village. So that kind of connectivity and ecosystem, I think, we know well, and it comes from the roots of us. It's innate. So I would say, holding that kind of idea around having an ecosystem and being connected to each other, and that you can't, creatively, the things that we're doing is we're birthing something. So we think about it a little old school. You're getting pregnant, you're birthing, you're baking something, you birth it out, you raise it. It's the same thing with our creative projects. So I think remembering that in that time, you need help, you need assistance, you need advice, you go to the old mamas for past information.
mamas.
You got the young girls, you're passing it on forward, the information they're watching you experience, the birthing of your creative baby. So there's an ecosystem, whether you like it or not, you're already like sharing and giving in a certain way. So I think tapping into that, that kind of sense of connection that we have as women from our cultural base would be something really great to do. I also think I would probably, it goes back to this thing of sharing and the mountain climbing, et cetera, and so forth, because I absolutely, it saddens and really knocks me off my center when I hear those type of things, but I understand where they come from as well, because if you're gonna enter a space where you're trying to survive, you have no time to be taking anybody with you. You know what I mean? When you're just trying to grasp water, where do you have time to share it? That said, it's that thing of also going, well, how did you even get to the mountain and that backpack in the first place? Yeah. There was somebody else who put you there. So you gotta bring somebody with you. And I think that's really important that we do. It's not even a paying it forward, it's just existing as we should, which is to be and give with each other. Yeah, it's not, I think people take it on like it's some responsibility burden, and it's not, it's innately within us. And if we connect to that a lot better, as women especially, because that is the crux of us. We do it naturally, we give, we breathe life in whatever profession you wanna put it into. So whatever arena you're stepping into, it's connecting to that base core of yourself and remembering that it's never alone. It's always with others. So you're doing it naturally. You don't have to wake up and make it a burden. You're naturally supposed to give as you're taking, because every time I move, I know I'm taking from somewhere. So I'm naturally giving as well. Yeah,
energy.
So I think connecting, it's an energy thing. So not necessarily some listed advice in that sense, but that's because I do think for the most part, in order to activate anything, we actually need to take a couple of steps back into ourselves.
That's it.
Yeah, for me. So usually most of the time I'm always working from the inside out.
Yeah.
And if we're not there yet, the activization it'll always stumble and not work. So there's a certain crux of yourself that we need to return to. I think that's really an important factor. And in doing that, you find your power. Yeah, definitely.
I love that.
Yeah.
In doing that, you find your power.
We hope.
I love it quite a lot. Erica, so if we get it right, what do you think females can look forward to, the highs, if we all work together and get it right? Don't say it's a difficult question.
So, no, in fact, what I was thinking about, just following on from the last three inputs, which maybe will answer your question, maybe
Sure.
it won't,
Sure.
is that we're not talking about an event or a destination, it's a
Right.
process.
Yeah.
And I think that all of the points that have been made about being, being true to yourself, understanding what is your passion, what that you want to do, how do you drive yourself in this career that you're choosing, how do you work with the people that you are working with. So I think the amazing thing about the creative industries is that I started off by saying it's talent-based, but that talent stretches throughout the ecosystem. So producers are talented human beings, as talented as the actor or the visual artist or the animator. And what is amazing, I think, about the environment is that actually to produce anything, music, film, a beautiful ceramic vase, whatever it is, actually requires a community of professionals with different expertise and different skills and different talent. And so that's, when you're thinking about your career and the work that you're doing, those are the people that you need to be working with and building loyalties with and relationships with.
Yeah.
And then understanding that, I think the sort of, whatever the trite saying that, there's no such thing as an overnight success. And that actually it's a lifelong journey. We're choosing careers, we're choosing to be in an environment. It's our professional choice, disposition. And then being clear that actually success is not going to come overnight, and even when you have success, you still are going to have to carry on working exceptionally hard to maintain it.
Can I just applaud you for the example you gave when you said making a vase? Because when we think about fame, just the connotation of fame, we think of movies, we think of radio, we think of moderators, music. There's so much more to film, arts, media, and entertainment than just the end result and the one who's there, lights, camera, action. So I really encourage you and to encourage other people to just explore what fame is actually, and the different careers and opportunities you can find within fame that make even more money than the ones who are in front of the camera. You'd be absolutely surprised and shocked what we are not tapping into as females, because there can only be so many people in front of the cameras. There's so much more that you can do behind the scenes, even producers, script writers, making vases, painters. The list is endless, you know. Esther, any closing remarks from you?
Wow, okay.
Wow.
I mean, I just want to echo, sum it up. All right. Everything that everyone said. I mean, I think, I just want to add a little bit to the idea of loyalty, because I so agree with that as well. But also, it's such a small industry. So how you treat people as you're moving through it is really, really important, because you have no idea how quickly that person can move to be in a position to hire you along the way, along with that work ethic, which I think is super, super important. And the analogy that you gave, which I think maybe bristled me as well, I think also is because it's built on a paradigm that maybe none of us fit into, right? Which is, it is based on sort of a male-dominated industry. It's based on what male-dominated looks of confidence is. I think that's also something when I'm mentoring, as you're talking with the talent, is like maybe confidence isn't being the loudest person in the room, right? And so it can be okay to be authentically confident that doesn't look like how that person's confident looks like. I think it's really about how, when you say like, what is this journey look like? This industry still doesn't fit all of us, and so we need to make a new industry. And this whole artistry is big enough for there to, and that doesn't necessarily mean that one is terrible, though there's some terrible aspects of it, but it does mean that there's definitely room for us to reform and reshape companies and career pipelines that are more authentic to getting these voices out there. Because, especially in the field I work in film, when those voices are heard, they're heard globally. So it is important that, that when you're talking about women in Africa, that those voices can then be put into the global, atmosphere and stratosphere, and can be really the part where we start to change the dynamic throughout the world.
Fantastic. I'm glad I gave that analogy and it bristled all of you. That was the whole point of it, because she's an incredible one. I really love her. So it's great.
She too doesn't hike though. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't hike alone.
No, you can't hike alone.
I've hiked up many mountains, and the
I
worst
should've
thing you can do
expected
is
that
hike
from you.
alone.
I know. And then wouldn't it be better if we spread out the weights?
I know, this is what I'm saying. I'm just like, also, you know what I mean? And like in the bag, who made the snacks in the bag?
Exactly. Like,
Probably
when we
your
got
mom.
there,
Like,
who drove the
you know
car
what I
to get
mean?
there?
Like,
I mean,
even
I
if
don't
you're
know.
alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, Capo, Lottie, Sam, Erica, and Esther, it's been a pleasure. I think we break into lunch right now, and the team will then let you all know when to come back into the room. Thank you so much, everybody.